idea of basic horse sense is to give people an understanding of the sort of things they need to think about when they go out and buy a horse. In this video we're aiming to try and give people an idea of how to go about getting the right horse for them. If people can have the right first horse, it can make all the difference for them, and they can learn to enjoy all of those wonderful experiences that horses can bring to our lives. Horse ownership is not something that should be taken lightly. It's a very serious commitment. You have responsibility for a large animal, and once you take ownership of that animal, you have to think about its feed and its health and its overall welfare, and you have to really understand that it is a major responsibility, and you have to be prepared for that responsibility. In order to be fully prepared for that, you have to know everything that goes into owning and caring for a horse. And that's, again, one of the things that we've tried to do in this video, is to teach people about all of the aspects of horse care and horse ownership that they need to think about before they go out and buy a horse. Every horse is different. Therefore, we have to be prepared to be flexible in our training. I don't think there is only one way that we can go in terms of training a horse. As well as that, every person is different, and we have to find a way that works best for us. So we've got to find the way to link an individual person's personality with the horse's personality, and try and find a way that we can then work in harmony together. There are three questions that you need to ask yourself before you rush out and buy a horse. The first of these is, have you had enough experience?
Do I have to hold on to reins?
Yep. There's no point rushing out to buy your first horse if you've only sat on one once before. At least 6 months of lessons on a well-schooled horse once a week would be the ideal. This would give you plenty of opportunity to become familiar with what really is required when you own a horse, and also it would give you enough skill to be able to buy a good quality horse. The second question is, do you have enough time to care for the horse? Horses are not just a 1 hour a week or even a 1 day a week pastime. You need to make sure that you can visit your horse regularly, that you can check on its paddock condition, its rug, make sure it's not caught up in a fence, and all of these things need to be taken into account. If you haven't got enough time to care for it, you really shouldn't buy a horse. The third question is, can you afford to own a horse? Horses are expensive to keep. You've got rugs, shoes, vet bills, feed, and all of these things add up. What you really need to work out is how much it's going to cost you to keep a horse in the area where you live, and then see if you can really afford to own it. If you can't, then you shouldn't be buying a horse. Buying a horse is charged with emotion, and it's easy to make a mistake and to get it wrong. There's really no such thing as a perfect horse, only one that fits your needs and your abilities. We've laid out for you here a 6-step plan which will help you take some of the emotion out of buying the horse and should ensure that you make the correct choice. The first step in this this plan is to have a realistic idea about what your requirements are. You should know what you want to do, whether you want to ride on the trail or maybe do a bit of jumping or do some dressage. If it's an all-rounder that you want, which would be ideal for your first horse, then that's fine. But you should have some idea of what your basic requirements are. Also be realistic about your abilities. There's no point going out and looking at a $10,000 show jumper if you've only been riding for 6 months. It's important when you start to go and look at your horses for buying that you take an expert with you. It's going to cost you a bit more up front to take the expert with you, but a knowledgeable person will be able to point out things that you may not see at first glance. The person going with you should be deliberately critical of all of the good and bad points about the horse, because you really want to have an honest appraisal of that horse and of whether it's going to suit you. It's a good idea to have the owner ride the horse first to make sure that the horse is safe, and then also to give them a chance to show off what the horse is capable of. Then you need to ride the horse yourself with your expert watching and checking for strengths and weaknesses. You should never buy a horse on the first visit. People selling horses can do all sorts of things to make them quiet for that first visit. They might have ridden it for 4 hours before you got there, or worked it very hard the day before. So therefore it's very important to make sure that you return to the horse and have a look at it at least 2 or 3 times. An unannounced visit can be a good idea to really see if the horse's temperament is exactly as it was on that first day. After you've been and visited the horse several times and had a couple of rides on it, and you've caught it in the paddock and you've decided that yes, this is the horse for me, then the one thing that you must do is to have a vet check. A vet check is not a guarantee that your horse will be perfect for the next 10 years, but the vet will be able to give you a good idea of the strengths and weaknesses of your horse, and it will really help to make sure that you make the right purchase.
David, why should people have a vet check when they're buying a new horse?
Vet checks are there to make sure that you're buying a nice, happy, healthy horse, and also make sure that the horse isn't carrying any injuries that may be a problem at the time, or, most importantly, that may become a problem in the near future.
What is your vet going to be able to tell you that your expert or your knowledgeable horse person can't?
I think it's important to remember that your vet is the central person in the healthcare of your horse, and that starts when you actually buy the horse or just prior to buying the horse. The vet's experience and education will enable them to examine the horse in much greater detail, so that any subtle problems will be found by the vet, where your experienced horse person may be able to have a general idea, but will not be able to go into the same sort of detail that a vet can.
It's a great idea to try and have a 1 or 2 week trial with the horse that you're looking at. Understandably, some owners aren't very keen to let their horses leave the property, but if you can work out arrangements with them, then it really gives you a good chance to assess the horse. You can see what the horse is like on the road, you can test it out in traffic, and even see what it's like with motorbikes, which can be particularly frightening for some horses. A trial will also give you the chance to make a full assessment of the horse's temperament, to see how well it settles into a new environment. You can ride it bareback, you can pop it over some jumps, and you can really see if it is a horse that's suitable for you. One thing that you must remember is that once you take a horse on trial, it becomes your full responsibility. So if anything happens, you will have to pay the full price for it. The final thing is to be clear about the conditions of sale, and you really should have everything down in writing. Ownership papers should be transferred across to you, and you need to make sure that everything is clear and in place so that there'll be no problems about the ownership of your horse or the price that you're going to pay for it.
Temperament, temperament, temperament. This is probably the most important thing you have to look for when you're buying your first horse. What you want to see in your first horse is an animal that's very relaxed around people, that doesn't stomp and paw at the ground and get impatient when it's tied up. It should be a horse that's comfortable out in company with other horses, that doesn't kick out at all, doesn't swish its tail around too much. A horse that's easy to catch in the paddock, and a horse that just generally gives off the signs of being relaxed and happy. The size of your horse is very important. You certainly want one that matches up with your own physical attributes. There's no point if you're 6 foot tall getting a horse that's just 13 hands high, and you certainly don't want to get a horse to grow into. Plenty of people have made that mistake before. So you need to match yourself up with a horse that is really the right size for your physical needs.
A hand is a unit of measurement which is applied to horses. A hand is 4 inches or about 10 centimetres. When we're measuring the horse should be on level ground, and we measure it from the last hair on the top of the wither there and go straight down to the ground from that. This horse is about 16.1 hands high.
Your first horse should probably be a good all-rounder who can give you the chance to sort out what particular aspects of horse riding you want to pursue. You may have already decided, however, that trail riding is your main area of interest. In this case, you should make sure that you look at horses that are experienced in this area. In other words, the horse should be suitable for the purpose that you want it. If you are keen to go to pony club or adult riding club, then make sure that you are looking at horses or ponies which have had lots of experience in this field. Choosing the horse that is suitable for the purpose you have in mind will help to make your riding a more enjoyable experience.
Conformation refers to the size and the shape and the general look of the horse, the structure of the horse. Now, for your first horse, if you're looking at a general all-rounder, it can have some conformational problems. It might be a little bit weak in the hindquarters, or it might have a neck that's set a little bit low. These things don't necessarily matter. You can still have a perfectly good horse that has 1 or 2 conformational flaws. The more advanced you go in your riding, the more perfect you want that conformation to be. For the advanced show jumper, your horse needs to be pretty much spot on in the legs, otherwise you're going to have problems. But your vet will be able to advise you on any conformational problems which could affect your first horse.
This is an example of a horse that has pretty good conformation. Now, when you go to look at a horse to buy it, the first thing you do is just step back a little bit and have a look at the overall picture. Does it create a nice image? Is the neck in right proportion for the rest of the body? And with this horse, you'd have to say, yes, it looks pretty good. Then you move in and you have a look at things a little more close up. The first thing we notice about this horse is his eye. He's got a lovely, soft, gentle eye. He's got a nice face and the ears are relaxed and alert. So it's a nice start. It looks like an intelligent, gentle horse. Coming back from that then, we're looking at a neck, a good neck with a good length of rein. The length of rein being the rein that we've got from our hands coming down to here. And this neck is in nice proportion here. If the neck's too short, it can create some problems with the horse's balance. The neck is set into a nice sloping wither, and this is a good wither. It's quite long and it slopes well, and this enables us to have a good angle through the shoulder. If the wither is too short, the shoulder can be a bit straight, and that can often result in restricted movement for the horse, a horse with a slightly shorter stride. Moving back along the top of the horse here, he's got a good top line. The top line is the weight and the muscle that we have on the top of the back. You can see there's nothing of his spine showing up there, and he's got a good top line and a nice strong back along there. The back comes into a good, strong, well-rounded rump, perhaps slightly flat, but it's a good, strong rump overall. And if we have a look at the rear end of the horse here, we can see that the point of the rump here comes down in a straight line to the hock, and then that follows the leg down to the ground. And that's a good, well set on back end. Coming back to the shoulder and going down the leg, this horse has good bone. What we mean by that is he's got a good, strong lower leg there, a good, strong leg with good bone. And this comes down to a pastern, which is on a nice angle. It's not too slopey, which can cause some problems, and it's not too straight, which can result in horses jarring up a little bit. It's a good angle. and from that it comes onto 4 well-set hooves, which are all quite even in their shape, and this is very important. There's nothing to suggest that this horse is pigeon-toed or has one hoof that's a little bit different in its shape from the other. So overall, this horse creates a nice picture. He's well proportioned, he's got a lovely eye, and he's got good strength through his back and through his legs.
One of the important things to look at when you're buying your first horse is its age. You really don't want a young horse, that's a horse under 4, as your first horse, and you really don't want anything over 20 because it may well only have a few months left in it, or it may already have problems that can stop you riding it. So the ideal first horse would be somewhere in the range of 8 to 18. The older, experienced horse may have been there and done that and may well be suitable for you. But remember, if you're getting an older horse, there should be some compensation in price. The older the horse gets, the cheaper the price should become for you.
Telling a horse's age from its teeth is a really tricky business and not particularly reliable. Even someone who is a real expert in it is going to be struggling to give you the exact age after the horse reaches 10. Your vet will be able to give you some idea of the horse's age. The horse may have a brand on it which can help with that as well, and obviously if the horse has papers which can be confirmed as being the real ones, then that's the best way of confirming what the age is. Different breed societies in different countries have different ways of branding their horses. This is an Australian thoroughbred, and the way of reading the brands for this, the R and the F on the left shoulder with the line underneath it, that tells us which stud this horse was bred at. Then on the other shoulder, on the right shoulder with this horse, we have a 41 over an 8. This means he was the 41st horse born at the stud on the other side in the 8th year of the decade. Now it's 2001, so this horse could be either 3 or 13. And just by looking at him, we can tell he's not 3, and we can tell that he's 13.
Stallions, mares or geldings, what are we going to buy for our first horse? Well, you can rule out stallions straight away. They can be temperamental, difficult to handle in company, and really not at all suitable for the first horse buyer. Only experienced horsemen should be dealing with stallions. So it comes down to a question of mares or geldings. And this is not a male-female question. You must remember that geldings are not entire, they've been castrated. So therefore, they may be a little bit more consistent in their behaviour. However, mares can have that little bit of extra spark, which can enable you to build a truly wonderful relationship with your horse. So if it comes down to a question of mares or geldings, I would always say that you judge it on the individual horse. Don't be set in your mind about which one you'd like. Go and visit the horse and see if it appears suitable for you.